Our planet is a lonely speck in the great cosmic darkness.
We're on a rock hurling through the universe. The planet as an organic spaceship.
Like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand.
Hi, this is Chrissy.
And I'm Marie.
And you're listening to Alt.Pop.Repeat,
A show where we get into the nitty-gritty around counterculture, alternative culture, and sync it up with what?
with pop culture.
Yeah, man. That's what we do.
There we go.
High five.
Yes.
So, Marie, it's our first episode.
Yay!
Holy Spaceballs!
It's happening. We are here. It's been a long, worthwhile journey.
Yes.
And we're kicking off Alt.Pop.Repeat with probably one of the best interviews we possibly could kick it off with.
Yes. Jeremy Kenyon Lockyer Corbell. Forename. That's what they
Did
call
you
him.
say that? Isn't there? I keep wanting to put a lion in his name.
A lion?
Like lion. Like, I don't know why, but it's like, for some reason, every time you say your name, it takes me back to the show Empire.
Oh.
And then I was like, for some reason, because they're Lucius Lion. And it was like, oh, this ferocious, really cool person. And every time you say his name, I expect there to be Lion Korbel.
Huh. We should tell Jeremy that.
Well, I think he'll know.
Okay. Well, now he will.
He won't. Well, if he doesn't know, we know he didn't listen to the podcast.
That's true. Exactly.
It's a test.
Yeah. Like we talked about with Mike, we'll put some lasers in. We're like, pew, pew, pew. Right. Just like, did
around
you
the
listen
thing.
to the Jeremy?
Every
Did
time.
you listen to it? We're putting lasers in. And
Every
little fart
time.
sounds. So this is our first episode. Jeremy Kenyon Lockyer Corbell. Amazing guy, amazing
So good.
mixed martial artist, director, investigative reporter, so many amazing things.
Photographer.
Extraordinary
friend.
person, has a brand called Extraordinary Beliefs. So Jer was just, you're right. He was like one of the best people we could start off.
Yeah, he was legitimately the first interview we did. So we flew down to Los Angeles on this harebrained scheme to go and do these interviews. Basically, it started because we wanted to interview George Stroumboulopoulos, and George was in LA, and he's like, and I said, rude not to invite us there. And he's like, well, come. So we went.
Yeah.
And as soon as we did, the first person we were able to book was Jer.
It's Jer Bear.
And he was really a gracious conversationalist. We learned a lot of really interesting things, especially about Bob Lazar, who is the subject of his documentary on Netflix, right?
Yep. Bob Lazar, Area 51 and Flying Saucers. Is the
Such a
film.
good documentary.
It is. And the one thing about Jer that you don't get with a lot of documentaries is there's a really, really creative element to it. Like it's visually beautiful. Like when you open up the first scene, you go, oh my God. Like that's the first thing I did. I was like, this is so up my alley. So, well, we're going to roll into the trailer so you can hear it. And I would go check it out, on Google and stuff. You can Google it and see his trailer, or go to extraordinarybeliefs.com and check it out. But honestly, like Jer Bear, amazing. And I'm excited to see more that he's going to come out with Netflix.
Yeah, he's a very good documentarian, and his stories are fantastic. He gets to work with the incomparable George Knapp.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
George Knapp is, anybody who is familiar with Bob Lazar and his story is going to be familiar with George Knapp, a formidable journalist.
Yes.
Who broke the story.
Originally in the first place. And then, in the early 80s, he broke it. So Jer talks about that in our interview with us. We talk about big D, little D.
And I giggle every time.
Right. There's so many things that we talk about. So maybe we just roll into the interview. And then after that, we kind of then do a breakdown in the end about our discussion that we had with Jer Bear.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's roll into it.
This story is extraordinary, especially if it's true. And it all started in the desert, just north of Las Vegas.
A local scientist who's worked at Groom Lake
said to be where top-secret weapons systems have been tested over the years.
He has asked that his identity be shielded.
Exactly what's going on up there?
What's going on up there could be the most important event in history. Physical contact and proof from another system, another planet, another intelligence.
What would happen to you if the government learned that you were giving us this information?
He just wanted to stay alive.
Maybe this has been kept from us for a good reason.
Sir, how do we know you are who you say you are?
My name's Bob Lazar. I'm known for working at a classified base and reverse engineered alien spacecraft.
It went all over the world. He put Area 51 on the map.
Can we ever be made whole if we're not believed?
We can't verify what was going on in his background.
I have no motivation to lie. The science and the technology can change us.
We've always looked to the skies for answers instead of looking into ourselves.
Investigative filmmaker, artist, former mixed martial athlete, and creator of Bob Lazar's Area 51 and Flying Saucers and Extraordinary Beliefs brand. That's a lot, my friend.
Yeah, well, the big thing now is, I've done a few movies. The Patient 17 is on Netflix. Hunt for the Skinwalker is out. Great thing with my mentor in journalism, George Knapp. I just want to give him props. I am so lucky to have people in my life that guide me. And the person that has guided me through all of the treachery and the insanity and the cuckoo-ness to find the things I can hold on to and all of this is George motherfucking Knapp.
Go George Knapp.
He's an investigative reporter out of Las Vegas that broke the Area 51 story, and he's been a guiding force in my work as a filmmaker and a journalist. And I just want to make sure you understand that that's where I come from. And that guy's got all of your backs listening to this because he's been breaking stories like it's nobody's business and he ain't stopping. So we're going to continue. It's going to get exciting. In the next few years, we're going to be living in a different world, I hope. My name is Jeremy Kenyon Lockyer Corbell. Yes, my friends and enemies call me forename. It's very cute. We are at a Petit Hermitage. I just threw an art show for the 50th anniversary of actually the murder of Sharon Tate and her unborn child. It changed the landscape of the consciousness of the world, and it turned people into this optimism of the summer of love in 1969. It turned it towards fear. This show is to honor the life and style of the icon, so I call it icon, of who Sharon Tate was in her life, because it's being hijacked by her death, and I never mention the M-Man, in my show, because this is about somebody that in her death, the only reason why it influenced the globe with fear was because of what she represented prior to her death, which was innocence, love, freedom. So in this show last night, one night show, it was a 350-piece large format art show with 10,000 negatives and Polaroids. I showed 15 pieces and invited my 80 closest, friends and art fans. And I used to be an artist. I was an accidental artist. I was mistaken as a famous photographer, and I ran with it and asked my mentor in photography, which I didn't have until I asked him. It turns out he was this famous Vogue photographer named Peter Carpathian. He's like, darling, it's easy. You take a camera, you point it, you pull the trigger. He's like, this is an old press Polaroid. He's like, just darling, you learn to use it. I'm like, what the fuck? So I took all these photos, and then Sharon's sister said, she was crying a little bit, seeing this, and I said, I can do something bigger for you. I can do an art show. And that was 10 years ago. Wow. So last night was the display of a very small portion of a bigger body of work called Icon. In my previous life as a fine artist, which again was accidental. I got mistaken as somebody who does art. Right. But, I made some beautiful art and showed it last night, and it was great. But I guess the big takeaway here is my entire life, I was a mixed martial athlete. I thought I would forever, bled martial arts. That's all I did. I never thought I would do anything else. And then I got an illness that ripped that away from me instantaneously. I mean, I had, thousands of students and, dozens of schools around the world. And I could no longer function as a physical human being, as an athlete, as a mixed martial athlete, And so I had an identity moment where, who am I if not what I do? And then I realized the things we do are a reflection of what we are.
Yes.
And what we are, if you can answer that question, is really important. It's different for everybody. So from the mixed martial arts, I started for my own therapy, just taking apart computers and installing LCD screens into old doors from the 1960s. It was really weird. I don't know why. I did it for mental stimulation because I physically couldn't do anything. And some guy walks by my studio and goes, and it's open, there's all this light and sound, and he goes, are you an artist? And I said, I'm a martial artist. I got like upset, he's like, well, did you make this? I'm like, yeah. He goes, have you shown it? I'm like, no. He's like, do you want to? I'm like, I don't know. And that was my first art show. And so again, I kind of got mistaken as an artist. I wasn't an artist. I can't even draw a stick figure.
It's awesome.
And then, from there, I start seeing they start making a documentary on me, this transition from martial athlete or martial artist to fine artist. And I'm looking at these guys filming me. I'm thinking, this is fucking cooler than what I'm doing. You can tell a story better. And I said, oh, man, I want to learn. So the whole time they're filming this documentary on my work, I'm like, teach me how to use the camera. Grabbed my first camera when I got married, and someone gave me one for a wedding gift. And first time I pointed my camera at a film subject with my 1,000 questions, I realized instantaneously my camera, my video camera, it was a passport into the unknown, into all the things I was curious about. And the number one thing I was curious about when I was 13 years old, I'm very serious, my curiosity was weaponized. And what I mean by that, I could no longer be a passive consumer of information on these extraordinary subjects. I needed to become an active participant in answering my own questions, like the questions we have. So that's really the journey for me. I was a martial athlete, man, and then, got mistaken as an artist, and my show blew up. LA Times covered it, went crazy, went around the globe, 2 times. It was insane. And then all of a sudden, I got this camera, and I'm like, this is my passport. This is it. This is it. And I started getting people to talk to me, and I was most interested about, was Bob Lazar telling the truth about flying saucers? Mike, by the way, just for the record on this podcast, Mike has the coolest outfit on out of all of us. It's colorful, and he's got pineapples on his pants, his pink pants. Salmon, men call him Salmon. I like Mike's fashion, and I one day wish I had the courage to wear something as cool as Mike is wearing.
We're all going to take a group picture and we'll put it on our Instagram.
Yeah. With that soundbite. That soundbite.
Like, we love Mike.
We talked about a lot of stuff, but mainly we talked about Mike's pineapple pants.
I watched your film before we came on the trip, and it did leave a lasting impression on me, and I couldn't sleep that night.
She texts me. She's like,
I'm not sleeping.
And I'm never sleeping.
Ever
again. You watched the Lazar film?
Yeah, I did.
I was like,
incredible.
You're going to love it.
And I did.
Yeah.
I loved it.
2.5 hours of bonus material because I couldn't fit it into a movie. You could get it on like iTunes or something. Two platforms, Vimeo and iTunes have it, but it's worth watching too because there's these scenes and these things I couldn't put into the movie. But they were strong.
It was.
But anyway, thanks for watching the movie.
Well, it's only that's a responsible thing to do.
It was, that movie was an act of like absolute insanity. It's the movie it's the reason I picked up my first audio recorder, in 2004, was to find out the truth about the Bob Lazar story.
Yeah.
And then to convey that truth, whatever it might be, to the public. So that was a dream come true, and no one ever thought I could do it. I did it.
You did it.
So it's great.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you. It's great. I'm excited. Everybody else gets to see it. I would not get behind it, and neither would George Knapp. Wouldn't have put his career on the line if we didn't know something.
Yeah.
Bob Lazar's telling you the truth, but for you to get to that, it's going to take a path that I can't provide. But it's true. All of this is by design. Right. It didn't happen accidentally. May 15th, 1989, it all began. That's when George Knapp brought Bob Lazar onto the screen in silhouette under the false name of Dennis, his boss's name, that weaponized the curiosity of the public in the association between flying saucers, craft of unknown origin or from another place of higher technology with Area 51. It all started on May 15th, 1989. That's why you know about Area 51.
Yeah.
It's all that. George Knapp started that by bringing Bob Lazar forward. What you're seeing now with the meme and all of that, that's harnessing a potential energy of frustration that has grown for 30 years. So this is not a fluke. This is not a meme. This is a much bigger potential energy and frustration that the public has with the idea that we are not being told everything that's known about our role in the universe. It's big shit.
So do you subscribe then to like disclosure and like big D and little d disclosure? Like big D being like, you know, a massive UFO craft comes and like says like, hey, we're here and lands, and then little d disclosure being like, hey, the government's decided to control thought and like and kind of like microdosing us with this stuff to be like, hey, you know, in the next maybe 20 years we're going to say that extraterrestrials exist or UFOs actually do exist. Because they're kind of saying it now in a very quiet way.
I can definitively tell you the government is not going to tell you the truth. It's not happening. They never have. They never will. The big D disclosure is the true architects of the secrecy are the visitors themselves. You know, they could reveal themselves, then reveal yourselves. They could do that at any time. And in fact, in a lot of ways throughout human history, they have.
Yeah.
However, what we're seeing now is a grassroots culmination of many, many decades of people knowing that there's more to the story, knowing that we're not being told the whole truth, and it's not the government. This is going to be us asking the right questions and bringing forward the truth. There's never going to be disclosure, big D, little d. There's going to be acknowledgement for sure, and there's also going to be just sort of slow reveal.
A lot of people don't even know what Area 51 is, surprising. Now everybody knows. Like, you helped, and like Bob and the movie, and I would say Netflix for distributing it but you making it, and like, and now people are like, whoa, like what's Area 51? Like a 14-year-old is probably going like, what's this? And you've now taken this massive counterculture idea and like moved it into pop culture. And like, that might not be your goal, but you did it.
I had one goal, and that was to uplift the visual aesthetic that you see with your eyes on this subject, because I'm a fan of this subject, but everything that I've seen, it's like it doesn't feel right, doesn't feel good. It's got to be entertaining. It needs to be beautiful, or people don't look at it, right? So that was my one goal. However, I knew what I was doing was amplifying a message. I was loudly screaming into a microphone saying, this is important. And the only reason I did that is because it is important. I believe Bob. Not only do I believe Bob, I know he's telling the truth. But that's from what I have experienced in the, let's say decade plus of digging in, getting to know Bob, living with him coming over with his wife and living at my place. So me and my wife, spending time together, knowing everybody involved, trying to find where are they messing with me? Where's the lie? There is no lie. He's telling the truth. So that to me was revelatory. I had a number of revelatory. I would tell you as a journalist, I would tell everybody, I would amplify this was a lie if it was a lie. It's not a lie. But now I can't expect anybody to believe that, because it's either true or it's not true. I know it's true. But for you to know it's true, there's got to be something you see more than just my movie. You got to look deep into the subject and try to determine for yourself reality.
Well, I was going to say, you made a point earlier about 1989. That's when Bob Lazar was it Dennis? Was his...
Yeah, George Knapp brought him on the news in silhouette under the name Dennis, which was his boss's name. It was like an FU to the base, because he was worried about his life. Whether people believe it or not, I will tell you, I have talked with everybody there at that time. They don't all agree. They don't all like each other anymore. The one thing they agree on, Bob Lazar is telling the truth, and he came forward out of fear. He was influenced by George Knapp that this was going to protect him. And guess what? It worked. Put him out right in front. Tell his story in full, first time, bam, like that. And he will be protected. And you know what? There have been some FBI raids, as you've seen in my film, all this stuff, but they have not found what they're looking for. And they also have, it did protect him. It protected him. He was scared for his life in 1989 for good reason. And I've even been able, George Knapp was even able to find one of the people that was tasked with following them at that time. He admitted it to George, proved it to him. And this also happened to Bob. all of this is real. And they always told me, it's really going to be hard for you to understand, Jeremy. You had to be there. But the closest I could get, to reverse engineering my age and my life and being somewhere, I've done it. It's real. That happened. He should have been scared. But George Knapp saved his ass by putting him public.
Yeah, and that's insurance.
Yeah, 100%.
There's going back again, 1989 is a significant year, which is really interesting from a Canadian perspective. Ufology Research is a Canadian organization that was established. They started doing research in 1989, probably influenced by the story coming forward. Now, once they started gathering the research, it was all from public record. Since 1989 to present day, they've been able to map the amount of mentions and stories that have been shared about people who have seen unidentified flying objects.
Wow.
And so they have determined that Canadians will see a UFO on the rate of 3 times per day since 1989. And there's an interesting spike that happens. There was a spike in 1993.
Yes.
And then once we got into the millennia, we went into it being like a couple of and it spikes up. And it's been on a constant and steady uprise, going up and up and up every year. Just, it's incredible to see that. So the question that I have now, as we were all talking about the big D, the little d, the big D being that if extraterrestrials want us to see them, that they will reveal themselves. Do you think that because now we're seeing more and more instances of people seeing these UFOs, that maybe the big D is coming soon? And there's the 14-year-old in me is like giggling every time I say big D.
The 14-year-old in me is giggling when you say that. What's the big D?
Exactly.
There is an intelligence engaging humanity since the beginning of recorded human history, at least. And at times, they present themselves in honest ways, and at times, they're deceptive. They're messengers of deception, to quote a Jacques Vallée book. I mean, there is a phenomenon, and there are hard physical craft that are flying with impunity in our airspace globally at all times, and our sensor systems are now picking them up. That's why you're seeing people like the guy that, by the way, I brought forward and broke that story twice before the New York Times, Commander David Fravor, chased a UFO. He was tasked with circling Los Angeles after 9/11. He was head of the Black Aces. I was talking to him for years about the Tic Tac UFO case prior to it going and being the tip of the spear for what you're seeing in the media. And I kept my word and I kept quiet, but I was able to break it twice with George Knapp on Coast to Coast, because all this stuff we're seeing, it may be much bigger, stranger, and interconnected than we think, that it's not just extraterrestrials, travelers from another solar system coming here. There might be a much bigger idea that is happening, and the thing that opened my mind to that is my other big film was Hunt for the Skinwalker, and
You're right.
that stuff happened.
It's petrifying.
And the government studied it. And I don't know how deep you want to go, but I will tell you something which nobody you're getting fake information out there. I'll tell you something for real. This is legitimate. The $22 million that people say was allocated to ATIP, that's the big story that came out. None of that was allocated to ATIP. People are going to hear about this. It was all allocated to a program called AWSAP, Advanced Aerospace Weapon Systems Application Program. That was a mother program, a host program, championed with black budget by Senator Harry Reid and 2 other senators, one of whom was an astronaut. And they got this funding in through the Defense Intelligence Agency, primarily because of George Knapp's book, because a DIA agent read the book, the DIA went to the ranch, George set that up through Robert Bigelow, and they had an experience, multiple experiences. And so all of that money from the government, which is a drop in the bucket in the UFO programs, but they're not admitted to you yet. But that UFO program, where they lied and said it all ended in 1969 with Project Blue Book, and now they're saying, okay, that was a lie. No, we did have an active program. Well, there are multiple programs. You hear about ATIP, but that was an auxiliary kind of side thing. AWSAP was the mother program. All of the money went to AWSAP through the Defense Intelligence Agency, focused on Skinwalker Ranch to begin. And this little lie is going around that $22 million is for ATIP. just to study military encounters with these craft for propulsion systems. It's a lie. And it's okay, government's lied to us before. You're going to get the truth later. George Knapp will make sure of that. But it's important for people to know. This topic is being studied by governments around the world, and they're all towing the line of keeping it quiet because they don't know what's going on. They don't really know. They got pieces of the puzzle, but they can't admit something when they don't really know what's going on.
In the perspective of the spiritual realm, I mean, we'll say as the voice on the podcast of that world, the fact that you're even here telling that story, that journey that you've taken to go from a mixed martial athlete, and that journey in itself, you thought it was the end all and be all. This is your world, and to realize that now looking back, that it was really that car that drove you to a place for you to realize that, oh wait, I have another story. There's the story that I can tell through the lens of my camera and help capture it. So it's a reflective surface to people look back and see.
The same consciousness that drove, I was always bad at sports and bad at this and bad at math. That same consciousness, though, that taught me how to approach things. Of course, I bring that into my art. I bring that into filmmaking. The big revelatory moment for me was that we are not what we do. That what we do is an expression of what we are, and that's the difference. And when that clicked for me, I didn't have any more of that loss of identity. I realized I've always been the same person since the moment I was born. I just get better at being that person. And then we can choose to push our energy into something, to push our focus and conscious and attention. And whatever we do that to, it's like watering a garden. It will grow because it wants to grow. So that's why the number one thing we should do as humans is be very careful with the one resource we can never get back, which is our time. Because that's where you get to plant, sow, tend to your crops, tend to your field of whatever you're creating. Because if you do that with sincerity and with integrity, it will grow. So you have to be careful where you put your energy, because that's powerful.
It's
and we
true.
have such a minimal time here on planet Earth, that I know of. I mean, maybe there's more. But again, I told you a disclaimer. I'm not a spirit. I don't know about spirituality, so maybe there's more. But we get this one chance, that I know of, and everybody has equal power if they apply themselves. But being lost is a very common sickness.
Right, but I think being lost brings you to a point of finding out who you are too.
If you fight through it.
Right, and I think that's you don't give up and you keep persistent, and then you understand being in the low is the low, or how high you can get in that context. That's that journey, and then keep going and and never giving up. Persistence is the one thing. You say time, I'm the same way. I think the same thing, but I also think you have to keep going. Shit gets rough.
So feet on the ground, head in the clouds, fists ready to fight.
That's a good saying.
You get that, and you're ready to go. I've never understood this idea of enlightenment, and I think this is kind of important. That I used to sit and meditate when I was a martial artist, and I realized, why the fuck I'm sitting down? Every moment of your life is a meditation. You don't got to sit down to do it. You should get up and do something. So, I think that the idea of, enlightenment and the people being, enlightened throughout their life, we're in a constant state of, if you're paying attention, of becoming more and more enlightened as a human being. There is no stop to it. From the moment you're born, you're either learning and progressing, or you're stagnant and wasting your life. So the idea of us constantly learning more, pushing the ego aside, pushing the I want aside, and saying, how can I give? How can I amplify? How can I contribute?
We're all nodding our heads.
Yeah. So if you can do that,
that's
why you're here. You're given this chance to make something, to create. That's why everybody is here. If it's, create a baby, if it's create a life, create an idea, but again, all of this are seen to come back to your pop culture, counterculture idea. All culture comes from counterculture because
100%.
That's how it all starts, right? So we're seeing a time now. 20 years ago, talk about UFOs, you probably know, people think you're crazy, right? And now, it's they came up with the idea themselves. Oh, we're not alone in the universe. The universe is so vast. But the real question here is, for people that are not aware, is well, are they visiting here? Well, guess what? Yeah, they are. And they have been for a long time. So now we need to elevate the conversation.
Yeah. And
What can we learn?
Right. And like stories like the Phoenix Lights in like 97, like, come on. So really people, didn't have like, phones with cameras on them. They were lucky enough, and pretty much all of Arizona saw that. And then you get the mayor of Arizona that, discredits it. But if he would have just embraced it, that would have moved it into pop culture. Right. But then 10 years later, or whatever it may be, he admits it. And he's like, when you're walking out at a press conference with an alien outfit, every ufologist was probably just like slapping their head going, the mothership just flew over Arizona.
He is a military pilot.
Yeah.
He saw it. That day himself, he knew what he saw. But here's the deal, is that he had a job to temper the public panic. And really, just the phone calls jamming up the lines, of his office. So the thing is that, I don't know what the thing is. The thing is that we're basically, it's right in front of us. It's right here. It's your problem. If you can't acknowledge it, it's your problem. It's happening whether we like it or not. Now, again, the phenomenon, it's bigger than just UFOs. It's way bigger.
I agree.
But UFOs are tangible, so we can talk about that. But it is bigger. It's bigger than UFOs. There's something that occurring with this intelligence, this phenomenon. It is guiding humanity, for better or worse. So people got to get there. Throw my words out. You don't like them, but it's true.
So what do you think's going to happen, like, just to segue into something else, but the raid Area 51, which, like, you and Joe Rogan, as I was saying before, Joe Rogan's my spirit animal.
Yeah. Say it again. Say it loud. Say it again.
I love you, Joe Rogan. You're my spirit animal.
That is the greatest.
Yeah, like, he is.
He's a great spirit animal.
He is. He's a great spirit animal.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, YouTube.
He's a powerful Joe Rogan.
He is. And honestly,
I underestimated, by the way, the power of Joe Rogan. My life has changed ever since the movie came out. People, pulling me over on the fucking road, in the car. So powerful way to reach people podcast, what you guys are doing.
Well, and what he does is like, we're females doing it and having like other conversations too, but he does the same thing. Like when I look at him, I'm like, you are 100% a starseed. I'm like, and you're like 100% like one of those people that are just trying to open up people's minds and get them talking and coming like, and I'd watching Fear Factor. Yeah. I had no idea. Like
he's
fast forward to 2019,
individual, and you're right. What he does is he lets people talk. I don't think you ask him to be on the pod. I think he asks you, like, he gets people to talk, and that is so powerful because that's communication. You let people talk, and that's really neat. I saw him do that.
And he has this like caring ability to him,
He does, but he's also a no bullshit, straightforward, straight shooter. Tell you to your face if he thinks you're full of bullshit, And I appreciate that about him. But he let Bob talk. And that did ignite a potential energy. That's how the Storm Area 51 thing started. He is now my buddy, Matty Roberts. He just in the middle of the night put up this storm, and he's not even into UFOs to begin, but he saw me and Bob on the Joe Rogan podcast, and then he watched my movie, and then just threw this meme up, and it caught fire because the potential energy was there for 30 fucking years. And actually, it was there way before that, in 1947 and all of that. However, it precisely the Joe Rogan podcast, they clipped from it. The kids saw me and Bob with Joe. He then watched the movie, then started this meme, and you see the world explode. And so all of a sudden, everybody's fucking aware that something's going on. So this is a potential energy we need to harness because we can't storm the base. Nothing's the base commander's gonna shut down the roads, and no one's gonna get close. And they need some water too. Anyway, so now we're transforming it. I'm not organizing it. I'm advocating for an event that will be multiple locations around the world, but on September 20th in 2019 will be the first. And we have a primary location that I know security is going to be good, and I'm working to get more security to support local business. And it's going to be an arts, music, and film festival with some recognizable faces if I can make sure it's safe. So I'm advocating for that because, look, you're talking about mass shooters, crazy people, UFO world, we got them. So I need to make sure it's a safe environment. I'm going to do everything I can to do that. I'm advocating. I'm putting people together. I am not part of the event as far as organization, just bringing people together to support the local community because this will be a yearly national holiday to shine a light on UFO secrecy. And the reason that's important is because the technology being held back from humanity can instantaneously change the world we live in for the better. But there's always two sides to a coin. It could also be detrimental. And that's part of the secrecy. That's part of why. With great power comes great responsibility. And what this power does, what this technology can teach us. And that's why Bob finally agreed to do the movie with me. Because he says this is a crime against humanity to not let them know just simply we're not alone in the universe. And in fact, they've been here. We have their technology. It's operational. We can't replicate it because of the material science. We haven't caught up. That's why our government pulls it out every 10 years or so and gets people to tinker with it to see if our material science has caught up. It hasn't yet. However, the fundamental physics we understand, but it is a weapon as well as something that could help our world. And think about it. If you were in that situation, that's why they're not just like open kimono, like let's go or tell you about it. But they can tell us one thing, or they can admit to it. We already know. Civilians are being contacted as much as the military is contacted. We're not alone in the universe. There's other intelligences, or at least another intelligence that is somehow wanting to communicate. So there are people that want to repent for being closed-minded and being negative about this. So one of those people, which you'll probably have on your podcast, is David Foley. Dave Foley is a friend. He's into my Bob Lazar movies, into the subject, but he said to me hilariously, is this great comic, but also just a great thinker. And he said, for years it was the easy laugh in the room to make fun of, the Hicks guy sees the UFO with the shotgun. He could make a joke. He says, but really he wants to repent. He wants to. He knows now it's too much data. It's too obvious that there's something going on. So people like him, like these celebrities that come forward, they want to contribute. They want to clarify. They want to use their face as their passport to people's consciousness to say, hey, we should look at this. This is important. So what you're saying is true. So funny. My mom, she's got these two sayings. She always said to me, I know she stole one, but I don't know how she came up with the other. But when I'm telling her something real kind of crazy, she goes, Jeremy, your dick's in the peanut butter. You're fucking nuts.
Love your mom.
Yeah, you should get her on the podcast.
Right? I'm like, whose mom says that? I was not expecting that.
You are my greatest skeptic. Like anything I say, I'm like, oh, I'm sure of this. You just get my mom or my wife, on this podcast, and they will shoot me down. They're great. But and then she also says, and she stole this from a comic, this great comic. What was his name? Anyway, it's like, no matter how new age you get, old age gonna kick your ass. She's trying to tell me, like, don't be so crazy, Jeremy. But the thing is that any of this could be true, but the most important thing is how does it guide your life? Does it help you in achieving your goals? It doesn't matter. You call it an apple, you call it an orange, you call it something in a different language. If it helps you to communicate and achieve your goals, that's what's important. Anybody can live artfully. Anybody. And that's the important thing. It doesn't matter what you do. That doesn't define you. It's how you do it. It's the expression of you. So really, art can change and does change the world. It is what changes the world. And everybody can live artfully. That's so important to not create a separation between one person and other people. We're all in this together, spinning on a globe in the middle of nowhere.
That should be a saying, like everyone should live artfully or can live artfully, and put that on a shirt.
It's on my little,
it's
on my little Sharon Tate flyer,
It's
art can change the world and everybody can live artfully. I mean, it is true.
Yeah.
It is very true. There's this other old saying, we are what we think, all that we are arises with our thoughts, and with our thoughts we make the world. And it was, they attribute it to Buddha, but Buddha was a thief. Buddha stole from Hinduism, right? So this is an ancient saying. But what's important about it is we are what we think. Mm-hmm. And all that we are does arise with our thoughts. And with our thoughts, we do change the world. And everybody has that power. They just need to apply themselves. And so, hey.
And believe in themselves. I think that's the biggest
Everybody
part.
else gonna doubt you. Another thing I learned from my mom. Everybody else gonna doubt you. Let them do that. You don't need to. That role is covered. Everybody else gonna tell you it's impossible. You should just decide and go. Everybody else will doubt you. Everybody told me everything in my life is impossible. Okay, I've achieved everything I've ever set out to do. Everything, every single one thing. I still got dreams and goals and aspirations. We'll see. Maybe I'll miss aim somewhere, but
at least you tried.
Oh no, you gotta fight. You gotta fight. You're gonna land somewhere. But I gotta tell you, I've achieved everything so far that I've tried to achieve, and it's bigger than I thought, or bigger than I anticipated. But I guess I just want to leave with one thought for your podcast, and people don't understand when I say this, and I really want to make it clear. I intend, from this point on, I've been doing it for a while, I want to weaponize your curiosity, weaponize it. And what I mean by that is, we, as human beings, we need every kind of person doing whatever they can to try to explore this mysterious universe we live in, try to come closer to truth and understanding and companionship and openness and connectiveness. And the only way to do that is to transmute this idea that we are passive observers in this life, where we are consumers of data and information. So as you listen to this podcast, you should then flip the script and you should become an active participant in solving the mysteries and the questions that you have as a human being. And it's different for everybody. It's different for everybody. But that is my one focused goal, is to entice people, annoy the fuck out of them so they become so agitated with the questions and the mysteries that their curiosity is weaponized and they become participants in finding out what they want and contributing, like you guys are, like you ladies are with this podcast. All of you doing this is contributing.
Yeah.
And that's what we need. We need creators. We need people doing this shit and shedding a light on all these mysteries.
I think thank you for weaponizing our curiosity.
Yes.
And sitting with us today in this fucking amazing, Easter egg of a hotel. That
it is an Easter egg, little hidden treasure, yeah.
It's a total treasure. And sitting down with us and sharing with us openly and honestly, we talked about a little bit of everything.
If people want to find you, follow you on Instagram, check out your website, where do they go?
I'm the easiest person on the planet to find, unfortunately, for me. But it's just extraordinarybeliefs.com. That is my website. Everything stems from there. All my social media is just Jeremy Korbell. I think you could totally misspell it and Google will tell you where to go. So it's super easy to find me. Type in my name. And I'm very responsive. I love talking with people. If I have the time, I love talking with people. I love the dialogue. This is a back and forth. There's my alarm for end of the podcast. But I like to learn from people. So do reach out to me. Tell me your stories. I am ready to hear them. And if I can move the needle forward, I will engage them.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you, guys.
I was doing a lot of thinking about the UFOs because we're talking with Jer in the interview, and I wanted to really understand, why are people so interested in it? And we talk about it in the show a little bit, where we're kind of waxing philosophically about spirituality, and I was like, is this a pop culture tie? And we're really interested in all these supernatural things. People are interested in fairies and dragons, and there's some people who truly believe that they're real. But what is it about UFOs that makes people think? Why do we have this innate need or desire to want to believe?
That's a good question.
Why do you think?
Why do I? Well, I'm a believer because there's so much evidence around UFOs or unidentified flying objects. It doesn't mean that they're piloted by intelligence, or we don't know what's piloting them, but there's so much evidence, and you only really need one to make it true. And that's a big part for me. But even out of hundreds of millions from years since one of the first identified, we even talk about this too, Egyptian culture and Mayan, and the Japanese even have all this folklore around ufology as well too. So from the Egyptian and the Mayan times, if one is real, then it changes everything in our existence that we know today.
But technically, before 1989, before Bob Lazar as Dennis appeared on television to disclose what he's seen. I love that he was Dennis. I'm sorry. There's something I giggle. I don't know why I giggle at that name. That part.
He kind of looks like a Dennis.
You think so?
Yeah. Dennis wears glasses. Right, Dennis?
Dennis wears glasses. What else does Dennis wear?
Dennis, if you're listening, send pictures to hashtag us on Instagram.
What else does Dennis wear?
Suspenders. I don't know.
Comfortable shoes.
Yes,
and has a penchant for reading books about engineering.
Right.
But it's like even before 1989, and that's like within your lifetime, your dad was always really interested in UFOs. This is something that's been passed on. But before that, there was no real quote unquote evidence. There was just people who just saw these things that they couldn't explain and had these crazy stories that they couldn't prove.
So my dad for sure is a believer because he's actually had like not an experience, not like he was hanging out with aliens and touching UFOs, but oh my gosh, it was probably during the 80s, I would imagine. He was driving up north with a group of friends on the highway on 401. For anyone who's listening, the 401's a major highway in Canada and passes through Toronto. And he was driving up north and with a group of friends, and everyone was pulled over on the side of the road watching this object in the sky. And it was bright. And so my dad had a rifle. They were hunting. My dad doesn't hunt. I should put that. He was going with them to go to a cottage. So they put the rifle and wanted to get a picture with it to look at the scope and get a better view, through the scope. So they put the gun and faced it towards the UFO and it took off. Like it just went right down the highway and everyone saw it. The news reported it. My dad has a picture of it. So when I was a kid, he showed it to me. It just lit up everything in me. So that's really where it started for me. For everyone else has some form of story or connection to it as well too. But to the one point though, we look at Phoenix Lights. So Phoenix Lights is a story that was before cell phones had, video cameras and stuff like that. It was a massive craft. It was, sorry if I'm saying this wrong, but I think it was like 3 football fields long that flew over Arizona. Like that's a mothership flying over. It's like flying over Toronto or any other city and people coming out of their houses and filming this thing with video cameras. And that's when the internet we couldn't upload videos and stuff like that. So it went viral in the way viral could be. There's been documentaries about it. So with a mass sighting like that, how do you not feel that something else is out there when you've had millions or hundreds of thousands of people that have seen the same thing?
But we don't know if it's attributed to aliens. It could be human technology that we're not aware of.
Well, I don't know, during that time, I'm not sure who was president then, but if they were, having football field stadium aircrafts, I want to know that technology. That's crazy. So I don't know if it's that or not. There's a story too in Japan that was it was a woman that came out and it's part of their folklore that they always talk about. This fisherman found this, UFO. They call it a UFO now, ufologists do, but they found this craft or some sort of craft that had hieroglyphs on it. And then inside of it, it was hollow. And the story is that a woman came out of it and they talked to her and then she went back in it. And then I believe it disappeared. So there's all this folklore, like Mayans have it, Egyptians have it. Everybody has this folklore around UFOs, which is unbelievable. And really that's the counterculture side. That's the alt side. There's some form of history connection to it. So I don't know if it's real or not, but I want to hope it is.
I love it. In a small way, you did describe Stargate.
That's true. Right.
Which, great film. I enjoyed Stargate immensely.
Well, there are we talk about Stargates, right? People, again, sci-fi stuff. And I guess that's the beauty too, is that sci-fi always, science is a big part of that. Sci-fi pushes science to go to look for new developments, new things that are different outside the way that we think, because a lot of people that are scientists love sci-fi and they want to create or find things that are interesting or different and to hopefully help us evolve, I would imagine.
So going back to the idea of why do we want to believe? Where is this belief coming from? And I just found myself saying the same word over and over and over. Why do we want to believe? The belief of it, the belief of the existence, believing. And I feel like there's something religious about the whole experience, that we don't really know. They're kind of a collection of stories that we've collected over time that we don't really have any, we as a population, as the public, we don't have any tangible proof. We assume that it's out there and that it's being kept from us. But there's a religious element to it that we really want to believe that that's true.
That's true. I think video footage. So my assumption in the way that I see this is that video footage that is real is evidence. It is to me. We don't know what it is. I don't know if it's, aliens running around, little green men or blue men. Like, I hope they're blue. I don't know, not green. And have, or like lizard people.
Pink and happy, joyful. Exactly. Yellow is a joyful color. I would like small yellow things instead of small blue sad creatures running around. I was like, yellow, joyful, happy.
Right. Like with, they're like little purple guys. Little sparks. Like little sparks. Little Oompa Loompas. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I believe in that side of it. I think that's the fun part that we get to go down that rabbit hole and, kind of describe what those cultures would be and what it would look like. But really the question is like, what is a craft? And so with Bob Lazar, we have this really great story, and we have, a physicist who worked at Area 51 and, and has back engineered, UFOs or some form of craft that he says he has. All we have is his story. So we hope he's telling the truth. A lot of us have followed it. The one thing about Bob Lazar that we've all known, and a lot of media has covered this as well too, which is amazing that mainstream media is covering it, is that his story has always stayed the same. There's not one thing that's changed. And usually when someone's lying, it changes, or it changes slightly. So over 30 years, it stayed consistent. So if you have to be a really good liar. So I don't know. I don't know if I want to hope that Bob's story is true, but it might not be. We don't know. And from what we talked to Jer, I kind of left there going, you know what? If you believe that much, and a whole bunch of group of people do as well too, and have had this following, there's something here. And I don't know why you'd want to keep that lie up for that long.
Bob is really interesting because he says a number of times, I don't know if what I saw is quote unquote alien, but what I know is that I don't have the knowledge, the material understanding of science and technology to be able to explain how some of this technology works. So the assumption being is if he's trying to reverse engineer technology that's been provided to him, then it has to be otherworldly. It can't be something that we as humans produce because somebody somewhere would know how it was created, one would assume, right?
Yeah.
If it was like from here. And then I was like, okay, cool. And then I went down it was like a whole rabbit hole of thought. It was like, I need to put notes together. And I went into this whole tangent of aliens being a part of religion we really want to believe. And then this idea of technology, that maybe our obsession with alien life is truly a byproduct of our obsession with technology, really, because really that's all we have.
Well, yeah, it's a good point. Right? Jared does mention in the interview though, that we've kind of had this for 30 years now, or even longer, I shouldn't say that, since Bob Lazar's moments, we've had, let's just say, one of the catalysts that kind of started it. I've had these moments where 30 years of buildup where people are going, we just want to know. We just want to know. Like, do you have aliens? We just want to know. We want to know because we want the technology and we want to be able to advance. So 100%, I think you're right. And that's what it is. It's using technology to do better for humanity. So people have these conspiracy theories that the government's holding it against us, or holding it from us, I should say. They might be, they might not be. I don't know what the government is doing and what it isn't. But what I know is that I look and I listen to people's stories and I hear them. I don't think they're nuts when they're saying, I'm seeing UFOs. I'm not sure how far I go down the rabbit hole when I feel like people are, having stories where they show up in their bedrooms. Like, I don't know about that, but that
was actually me.
Yeah, imagine.
That was me in your room, and I'm sorry, I should have, but anyway, it was
Maria's like green body paint on.
I did. And some lighting, some LED lights that shone in your eyes so you can really see what I was. So if you see a figure creeping in your room late at night, it's not Santa Claus.
It's just Marie.
It's me. Although like Santa Claus, I may, actually, no. Instead of leaving a few things, I may take a few things before I go. Like, I'm the opposite of Santa Claus, actually. Actually, what I'm describing is a thief.
Right.
I'm an alien thief. I just think it's super cool, though. We're talking to this guy who admittedly is like, I'm no great thinker. I'm not like the spiritual side of things. Like Jared's not like, hey, I know everything about spirituality, but
no, he just wants to learn, and he's an investigative journalist, you know.
He's got a
He's
curious
filmmaker.
mind.
Yeah, he wants to know, is this the truth or is it not? You know, we all want to know. We want to see some aliens.
Show us the aliens and show them to us now. I want to see the technology. Like we have so many really cool things that we can adopt in our lives and we can see it. But I've heard things about metals that look like almost like a frog skin and all sorts of really interesting things. And even what was talked about in the documentary about what Bob was working on, there was that vortex, that misty vortex, and they found like a very grainy video of it at one point. Jared did actually, when he was going through all the different video footage about how this might be a power source. Hand scanners, which these are technology that back in 89 might not necessarily have been a part of every day, but they're things that we use every day now. Like our phones have retina scanners on them and facial recognition and fingerprint technology. Maybe it's aliens. I think it's like my obsession, I think, is in a weird way, is like I am oddly obsessed with the alien technology.
So we know that Bob worked with an element that was somehow new, advanced, it was never found, and then now it's on our chart. Like it doesn't, how does that happen? How does someone come out, you know, in 30 years ago and say, I'm working on this amazing new element, and then it's never ever been created before, and people are like, oh, that doesn't even exist, you know, and then fast forward, you know, 10 to 15 years later, it's like, oh, by the way, it does. And also the other things of like hiding that he went to MIT and not finding records, but then them actually finding records, and Jeremy doing it, and a lot of other, you know, George Knapp looking into it as well too, and having proof that he did go to MIT. So we know, for example, like we were talking about this yesterday, you know, we look at Edward Snowden. We know that the government and media, or government in general, likes to wipe out documents or likes to falsify things because they don't want other people to know. So the question is, if it isn't true, then why are you working so hard to cover it up? Like, that's my question. Why wouldn't you just say, oh, this guy's just let him talk for a little bit and who cares, and it will slowly disappear? But no, when you try to cover it up, you're putting fuel, you know, on that fire, like, I think.
Let's go Area 51.
Yeah.
Area 51. It was a location that was scouted, was found, and was created exclusively to be built in secrecy.
Right. And they said it was a secret. They said it never even existed when they first built it. So they lied about that too.
Yeah. There was a whole gentleman that was his entire job was to go out and try and scout for that location. And at the time, because there was no, you know, Google Earth View, and there was no, you know, satellites and drones and things like that, they could get away with it. They could go off the beaten path, and they could find this place in the desert to allow themselves to build these secret bunkers in order to be able to do tests. So it kind of lived under what we understood to be true for so long. This is a question I have for you that I don't really know because I'm not a ufologist. Did Area 51 really exist before Bob Lazar?
Yes. It started in 1955.
So 1955, you're saying it existed. That's why you know this stuff. I don't know it. You know it. How did it come about in 1955?
Well, they say that a lot of UFO activity started. I don't know exactly why Area 51 was created in 1955, but prior to that, a lot of UFO activity was highlighted, especially with military bases and things like that, is when we built the first atom bomb and we tested the first atom bomb. Like we say, my dad always says this too, that when we built an atom bomb, it was like kids having matches and humans learning how to use fire, and it just exploded. And if there are UFOs or people, you know, or whatever the heck they are, things running around outside of our planet, they must have go, okay, you know, we taught the ants how to use fire now. Like, or they didn't teach us, but they know how to use fire now. Like, that's a huge, massive, you know, boom that you would see in the middle of space, you know, if you're flying by, I don't know, you're flying by Earth to get to Saturn, like, I don't know, you know, but for some reason, like that's when the activity started.
What's happening at Saturn?
Yeah. Saturn's my favorite planet. It is. And it's losing its rings. It's really sad. Anyway, we can talk about that another day. But, yeah, if it's flying by, or who knows what it is, or there's some form of wave that we feel like, I'm not a scientist here, but all we know is that major UFO activity started when we learned how to use atom bomb. So that's what happened. And then we got into, the Roswell crash. So that's why people think they're finding aliens. The difference, though, we have to note, a lot of people think that Area 51 is in Nevada. What happened in Roswell is in New Mexico. Like totally two different areas. They're not the same area. Everybody always thinks that Area 51 is Roswell, which isn't true. So I don't know. If you don't know that, we can clarify them. But they're two different incidences in two different times. But people always connect them because, they think that during Roswell, they took some aliens that, we always say they went joyriding and crashed and then ended up, being maybe taken over to Area 51. I don't know. I have no idea. But and if they're not there, they're not. We just know that there's some. It doesn't mean that aliens are hanging out in Area 51. If they were years ago, they're gone now. Like they're not there. Let's be honest.
But I thought it was like, okay, Roswell is where the aliens go and joyride and party, and they're like, whoop whoop, like here we are, yeah, Earth. Party, get down. But then Area 51, in my head, I'm thinking Area 51 is where the ooky spooky 1980s government labs and secrecy. And, if they had to do secret tests on, the ET, whenever they were searching for ET in the movie, they were taking them to Area 51 to poke them with needles and stuff. Like that's
them.
Yeah, exactly. To probe them and to find out like ooky spooky things. Like that's a place I don't want to go.
Hashtag ooky spooky.
Ooky spooky.
Hashtag ooky spooky. I love that.
And it's terrifying. It's like the definitive American government scientific research lab that you see in every 80s film that you never want to find yourself in. Right?
Totally. So, we look at Roswell 100%. So, I've been to Area 51. I haven't been inside of it, but I've been around it. So I've been down Groom Lake, which is like the secret road, to one of the back gates. And then you have the major front gate that people can go to. So a lot of people don't know when you get to Area 51, you get to the front gates. You cannot go past it. And we'll get into Raid Area 51 after this. You can't go past it or they will shoot you. They're allowed to shoot you. They say they will. They're allowed to detain you. So that's scary as heck. There's people watching you. That's the other thing too. We were driving down Groom Lake and they were watching us. There's sensors in the road. We turned down Groom Lake and a car's light went on us probably 20 miles in the distance. And then when we finally got to the gate, they came down. So we ran out, took a picture and then ran back in and we're like, let's go. It's like so scary. They're like, they're gonna get us. The camos are gonna get us. So
see, ooky spooky. You don't want to get caught.
And it was at night too. It was it was dark and we did the whole thing, the whole 9 yards. But I'll post a video of that, of when we went to down Groom Lake on our Instagram. But anyway, so when you get there, it's eerie, yes, because there's that eerie story around it. But from the gates, it's 10 kilometers inward to get to the base. And then the base is covered around like mountainous. So I don't know if they're mountains or massive hills or whatever they are, but it's situated right in the middle of them. So if they wanted to test a craft or any form of testing that was like a plane or whatever it would be, that's secret, you couldn't see it from the road or anywhere else. It's also in the middle of nowhere and it's 2 hours outside of Vegas. The only people that probably see all the most amazing stuff is this little town called Rachel that has like the Alien Inn. Shout outs to the Alien Hotel and Bar. That's it. Like it's nothing. So, it's this really creepy, airy space, but that's what you would do if you were testing secret stuff.
That's it.
You're not going to do it in Vegas. Like
Area 50. No, you're not going to do it in Vegas. And even if you did do it in Vegas, nobody would even know that that's what it was. They would just think it was part of a Vegas show. Nobody would really
so true.
Figure it out. Maybe there's
the best spot.
There's a strategic reason potentially about why Vegas is there. I mean, maybe we just blew this wide open. We did. Now.
There's this story that Charles Hull has that he worked at Area 51 as well. He worked at Dreamland, which is like a part
also
of Area
sounds
51.
Terrifying. I'm sorry.
It's the names too. You're like, what the hell? But he worked at it as a weather analyzer. Anyway, long story short. So he said he met all these like tall whites. And I know. And he said they were huge, like tall. Yeah, it's
Pleiadians.
Yeah, Palladians. And so anyway, but he said that a part of it, I had to stop like watching all of it because you're like, how far am I going down the rabbit hole? He said that they would occasionally, the tall whites would go to Vegas and because they look like humans, and they would go and play in the casino that ended up having like constellations. It's not there anymore. And so they would laugh at it because they thought we knew what space looked like, and they would mock us. At that point, I kind of stopped watching because I was like,
it was just
that's crazy. Like, I'm going to play blackjack with a freaking tall white. Like, I need to play blackjack with him, or I don't know, some form. We're gonna do the slots.
If we learned anything
from
from almost every space film, Star Wars even had it. You always have the saloon where the people go and they're gambling and they're playing their games. So that if the aliens are going to come in, why not go to Vegas? People probably just thought they were Swedish. They were tall white people hanging out.
Well, that's what they say.
Speaking, a whole other language. But again, they probably were Palladians because apparently Palladians are like tall, white, blonde,
right?
Creatures. But regardless, let's go back to Area 51. Area 51 is in a very strategic location next to Las Vegas.
Yep.
Great.
It's 2 hours outside of Las Vegas.
Bob Lazar is cool because, and this is when the distinction started to happen. It was all because of Jer's film. Because now I started to put it in my head. I'm like, okay, well, Roswell is like joyriding central, but Area 51 is like the eerie, spooky American government bunker testing facility. Bob Lazar being a graduate of MIT, who ended up getting hired by the government to do as an engineer, correct?
That's correct. As well as a physicist. He graduated MIT as a physicist, and then he ended up leaving, from graduating there, he ended up going to Area 51 to work. He always said in the doc, though, too, that there's so many other people they could have chose from, but they chose him. And
maybe because he's a little wacky. I mean, it's not like he lives a life a little bit on the edge.
Now I remember.
Tell me.
I remember in the media before, in the press and stuff like that, before he ended up getting hired at MIT, he was putting like massive engines or rocket engines on cars. Like, he's just like so. Yeah, he's like the crazy, I wouldn't call him crazy. That's not fair. But he's like the thinking outside the box physicist that like wants to build crazy, wicked cars and like, use science for cool stuff. So for him, whistleblowing that technology, this new technology that humans or, we're not getting as people, then he felt that wasn't fair.
Yeah.
Like, it's a full-on whistleblow, and I appreciate that, geez. I want to know if they've got cool shit. I want to play with it too.
You probably do. Again, you have like a thumb reader on your phone. It reads your fingerprint. There's some of the stuff where like, how did you figure out how to do that? It's on the glass of my phone. I don't even know. But they had hand scanners. Bob Lazar talks about it. You learn about it in the documentary. He has the hand scanner. They show a picture of it. And he has like this moment where he hadn't seen the hand scanner, that image of the hand scanner in like decades.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, that's it. That's the thing. And I was like, dude, that looks very primitive as far as our modern day technology of hand scanners go.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. Like, I think it would measure the bone density. That's how you would know.
Your scale does that, man. You stand on your scale, it tells you your weight, your fat. It's all
your body index.
Potentially. It's all alien technology.
Like 30 years ago. So I think now we look at, Raid Area, like now we have Raid Area 51. So Jared mentions that, we talk now about how we sync it up, right? So Jared mentions in the film that people were just frustrated. And it finally came to the level where we're like, we just need to know. There's too many ufologists. We need to know. We just can't take it anymore. So, the pressure starts being put on pop culture. So then you get this one guy after Jared does Joe Rogan, which is amazing, that as a joke starts a Facebook, a meme by group that says, Raid Area 51, let's see some aliens. And it goes viral. Like, you get like over 2 million people signing up to go Raid Area 51. Like, if that doesn't tell you, like, or shows you that pop culture is so interested in ufology, like, I don't know what else it does. Like, we know at least 3 million people believe.
You have a group, right? You have millions of people who have been fed Star Wars, Star Trek, Stargate,
oh my
Firefly.
Gosh. Yeah.
you name it.
There's Project Blue Book.
Well, you have like all these people who have been raised from a really young age.
Yeah.
And this is where I'm like, this is where the religion factor comes in, because you're going in and you're seeing all of these things. And I mean, there's religion based upon the Jedi. Let's there's religion based, and there's languages based upon Klingon language from Star Trek. Like, people have been conditioned from a very young age to learn and accept, to want, to desire, and to be a part of this whole other sci-fi universe. And then finally, we're at that point where, someone puts out a meme that says, let's raid Area 51. And everyone's like, yeah, let's do it, man.
Yeah. And then you get celebrities backing it. So you get like Lizzo, you're getting like Miley Cyrus, you're getting Will Smith. You're getting all of these people that are backing, saying, I want to see some aliens too. Let's do this. Like, it's become a pop culture, not phenomenon, but now it's people want to be part of it. Like, ufology is cool now. Like, I'm like, yes, finally, about time that people are like embracing this, and then we get, the Navy coming out and saying that, the footage is real, this past year. Like that, in ufology, people are screaming. The New York Times picks it up. CNN picks it up. Like, every ufologist. I was in Mexico and a ufologist messaged me and was like, Chrissy, like, are you seeing all the news today? I'm like, I know. Like, it's unbelievable. Like, you can't believe how happy all of us are. But all these syncs are happening for a reason. And they're coming back because now we're showing that counterculture is pushing pop culture. So, like, who knows, like, what's going to happen with ufology?
Who knows? Are we going to get a visitation? Are they going to disclose technology? I feel like the technology is going to be like a really tricky one, because, I mean, the military, I would assume, are going to want to have dibs on this stuff that allows them to go super fast or be super stealthy or all those things. Like Flight of the Navigator, that entire... You didn't see it yet, have you?
No, I haven't seen it.
Flight of the Navigator by Disney. It was this little boy who can actually fly a spaceship, but the spaceship itself kind of is like this nebulous, almost kind of not a creature, but it kind of has this flow to it where it can be invisible, and goes really fast, and it's really cool. You should watch it.
Yes.
It's a great film.
And also, like, one of the other stories too that I love is, and I don't know if this is true, but when Close Encounters was made by Steven Spielberg didn't write. He didn't even, someone apparently, and you guys can tell me if this is true or not, apparently that script was anonymously sent to him. Somebody sent it to him. And then he read it and he was like, we need to make this into a film. So, like, who sends somebody one of the first UFO films about contact with aliens and humans, along with the Navy and whatever, and then the Army and everyone else? It's a pretty, it's a huge movie too when it came out. And that's what put Spielberg on the map, at least one of them, and then he did E.T., or was E.T. before? I don't know. But
Spielberg loves aliens.
Yeah, he does. He loves anything with that, film, with that kind of genre, and with a happy ending too. Spielberg always has a happy ending, which is great.
Sidebar, I have to ask you this.
Yeah.
I've asked you this once before, but you've probably had some time to think about it. Favorite film alien?
Oh my God. So I'm not going to say it's an alien, but my favorite sci-fi film that I think has an alien like attachment is 2001: Space Odyssey.
Specifically
because of the end. The end is, you don't know if it's like an intelligent hand. You don't know, because he's aging. You don't know what's happened to him. We know Hal is like this computer and whatnot, but we don't know what happens in the end. So and that could be, and if not, it's E.T. I'm like, I love E.T.
I loved E.T.
So
when I was
cute.
older. I watched it again, and it dawned on me E.T. was a botanist.
So botanist? Well, I guess he was. He
was a botanist.
He was a botanist.
He came to Earth to study the plants, and I thought that was the most darling thing that I ever. And really, he just kind of got separated because he was trying to find a nice little flower, a little plant to take back with him. He said, "Ma, here's my," and then he got stuck behind. So he's really just a baby botanist.
Okay, we're gonna wrap. Okay, so the one thing I want to leave is that our connection to syncs with pop culture and counterculture is the base camp Area 51 that Jared did, and having Paul Oakenfold, the DJ, show up, which was awesome, unbelievable. And that really shows you that mainstream, like, shows up like last minute, an hour before, things start happening. A major DJ shows up and DJs this entire party, which I think is amazing. And it's showing you that, that connection. So good job, Paul Oakenfold, I am totally going to go to base camp next year at Area 51.
Well, we're going to have to.
Yeah, yes, we are going to the festival.
There's
I'm wearing my tinfoil hat.
If you can figure out how to make one, because I know how difficult that was for you a few weeks ago when we were doing our photo shoot and you were trying to make your... I didn't know it was that hard.
It is. It's hard. It's hard for me. I'm not good at those things.
Well, it's kind of an interesting topic to say, like, why is it that aliens are capturing our interest, in particular right now? Why are we so interested in writing? Why do we need to know? Is it attributed to religion? Is it attributed to our fascination with technology? Is it attributed to scientists who have come forward and say, hey, we found some bacteria? Is it movies? Is it pop culture that's driving it? We have all these different things. And I think it's really a collection of the whole story right here that's been feeding us the story of aliens and extraterrestrials our entire lives. There isn't one part of our life that hasn't had some sort of influence about aliens. Again, religion, think about it, up in the sky. Ancient aliens on the sides of the pyramids, and you have the hieroglyphs talking about it, Mayan culture talking about it. You have also pop culture stories, myths, music. Katy Perry had a whole song
on aliens. Little Nas did a whole thing on Area 51.
He did.
So we're showing that ufology from counterculture is now become mainstream.
A mainstream thing.
Whoever would have thought that?
No one, especially in the 50s.
No. Oh my God, no. No way. Oof. So I say we leave off with, if you haven't seen Bob Lazar's Area 51 and Flying Saucers on Netflix,
you have
check
to
it
watch
out.
it.
Go online, download it. Jeremy is amazing. Hopefully we'll release like the long form of interview too, if we can. If not, check him out, follow him on social. And yeah, until our next sync.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And we're done.